Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Helene again with our Mastermind series. We have an exciting person joining us today. We're so happy that Jeffrey could join us, and we hope you're safe. We are all looking back to, gradually getting out back to work, and we're moving on. We're progressing. We're moving forward in this new normal, and everybody is. So welcome again, and we're going to be taking you through a particular conversation today that we're excited about. But we want to focus the conversation and invite salespeople to tune in to this particular series. It is the sixth, I believe, in our series. And today we have Jeffery Azan. We waited a long time to have him because he's in demand, but we're so happy to have him today. Now, Jeffery, he is an international motivational speaker. He's an author of a book called Self-Discussions. He's a professional development coach. He's a martial artist, and he's an active member in Toastmasters. Now, Jeffery, you may want to enlighten us and tell us how do you manage to navigate and do so many things?
Well, for starting, Bev, thank you very much for having me on the series. It's a pleasure to be here and share. It sounds like a lot when you put everything into the titles, but really it is, for me, all about alignment and management of self and time. My Toastmasters training and participation in the club fuels my personal and professional development. Likewise, my martial arts training fuels my discipline and my mindset, and actually my ability to teach as well. Then both of those feed into the concept of being a personal development coach. Being the coach helps to fuel the author, gives me a lot to write on, and then any opportunity I get to take the stage and share. So yes, it really, for me, is all one thing, but because these days, you give everything a title and its boundaries, it seems to be a lot, but the mission is the same. It's how do I help people develop in a personal manner, a professional manner, and how do I help them to get and stay motivated as they go on their journey.
Boy, thank you so much for that, Jeffery, because our target audience and the persons who we want to really watch this particular episode are sales professionals, business development people, entrepreneurs, because their profession has been hit so hard by this particular, pandemic that we're having. We are accustomed to going out and talking to people. We're accustomed to engaging. We're affable people. We solve people's business problems or lifestyle problems through engagement. But engagement has changed for us. And during this lull, a lot of salespeople that I have come across or I have talked to, they have reached out to me, and everybody, you're not motivated every day. They're not necessarily down every day, but we need to understand how it is that we can take ourselves from this situation and move on and progress and move forward, and especially be there for our customers. So there are 4 areas we kind of said we would talk about, and you would enlighten us because we're going to rely on your expertise. It's shifting perspective, feeding your mind, leading your life, and changing your approach, which I think it's so aligned with salespeople this morning. So when you say that, shift perspective, what does that really, really mean?
Well, shifting perspective has a lot to do with what you believe about the world. Let's use a practical example or a hypothetical example. If I was to take somebody, say we could time travel, and I could take somebody from the 1800s, and I looked at the needs of that person in the 1800s, chances are they needed to make an income, they needed to take care of their family, they needed to feed themselves, and they needed to find some vocation that provided them an opportunity of some level of income and security. Mm-hmm. There's no real difference between that person of the 1800s and somebody of 2020 today. The education might be different, the opportunities might be different, the vocations might be different, but the reason we work, the reason we go after things are still the same. So we need to take this time to really shift our perspective. As I've been telling a lot of my clients, COVID actually changed nothing in the grand scheme of things. Okay. There was always disease, there was always death, there were always business challenges, there were always germs, there was always bacteria, there was always some level of social problem, there was always some level of political dissonance, there were always people taking opportunity, and there were always people succumbing to fear. Only thing that really changed is that the dependency that we had put on the system, that dependency has failed us. That's the only difference between pre-COVID and post-COVID, is we're in many ways now awakened to the fact that the system that we trusted can actually fail. And so it's really going to call on us as individuals to shift perspective, to realize, wait, I'm not just a cog in the wheel, but I am the master of my life. I choose to go to work every day. There's not a gun to my head sending me to work.
Okay, so when you say dependency on the system, expound on that a little bit for us.
Well, many of us, unfortunately, especially in Western society, are of this belief, and we're fed it by our parents, our peers, our guardians, of a promise in life. And unfortunately, the promise was always false. The promise stating, if you go to a good school, get good grades, then you'll get a good degree. If you get a good degree, then you'll get a good job. You get a good job, you'll probably get a good salary. You get a good salary, you'll be in the position to have a good family. You have a good family, then you'll end up eventually having a good retirement. And if you have a good retirement, then you'll have a good death.
Okay.
And that's what we literally think about for the first 20 to 25 years of our life. If you buy into the whole concept, if you follow that precept from the very beginning. I know friends who in prep school, they knew what the next 15, 20 years of their life looked like, because they had been fed the structure so much that in feeding them and buying into the structure, they had this sense of security. Oh, if I do this, then this is going to happen. If I do that, that is going to happen. Now, there is the reality of cause and effect. But as you and I know, in sales, entrepreneurship, HR, all the factors, there's a lot more to be said about the quality of the person than the qualifications of the person.
Yes, especially in 2020, yes.
There you go. There's a lot more to be said about their work drive than their actual so-called education. And so these are the things that when I say shift perspective, we need to take appreciation of. I give you another example that I shared in another interview a month or two ago. I was speaking to some marketing professionals, and I had to make it very clear to them. You want to talk about shifting perspective. You want to talk about adding and creating and being aware of value. In an organization, in a large corporate organization, the first department to be fired and laid off in these type of times is marketing. Also called valuable marketing, the one who puts the ideas out there, gets the people interested, draws the people in. They're the first to go a lot of the time.
Yes.
You know who's one of the last people to go? The janitor.
Oh, okay. All right. Why?
Because his value is consistently felt day in, day out. The second trash isn't taken out, you feel it. But you don't exactly feel the difference of getting impressions on an ad or getting column inches in the paper. That's a hope, that's not necessarily value in the mindset of a business owner.
Okay.
So, that shift in perspective when you look at an organization as a whole. Of course, every part has its piece to play and every part has value to add. But in terms of the immediacy of feeling of value, marketing is the last person whose value you really feel, and the janitor is the most immediate person's value that you feel.
Right. Okay. So you are inviting us, when you say shift perspective, is to take ourselves out of the structure that we have been accustomed to and open up ourselves to be objective and looking out and be a part of the change and navigate what that looks like.
You're absolutely on spot. If we're looking at everything that's happening as a fear and a panic and an Armageddon and the rapture, it's going to slowly become that. If we look at it as a challenge and realizing, once again, another shift in perspective, every challenge can be overcome, every problem has a solution, every question has an answer.
Yes.
If we can shift it from death, doom, and gloom,
yes.
so how do I build and get stronger to not only survive but thrive?
Yes.
Then everything starts to become a little more easier.
I love that. I love that, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for that. And then, you know, you get into feeding your mind, because this is so important. You have to be ready mentally for your A game before the pandemic. So now you need to call on your mental abilities, even so much more now, to remain focused and strong. How do you do that? How do you feed your mind?
Well, truthfully, you need to, a lot of the time I tell people that they need to kind of assess what is their mind lacking. And that sounds very broad, but you know, whether you admit it is a whole other thing, but you know, just like if your skin start to feel dry and your lips start to feel parched and your throat start to scratch you, you know you need water, you know you're lacking water. And so we know what we are lacking intellectually, emotionally, mentally all the time. And we know it because when we're listening to a conversation, we might not understand what is being said in that conversation. We know it because when something happens, we have an over response to the situation. Somebody says, boy, you know, Susan was sneezing yesterday. But because we're not really informed as how the immune system works, how one builds the immune system, what are all the reasons for sneezing, oh my God, it's COVID, it's the Black Plague, everybody going die now because Susan was sneezing. And so in this realm of business, we need to recognize that how we connect and speak to people is going to be very based on what's inside of us. We have to fill those spots of lack. We have to fill those spots where we're unsure. If we realize that what we process, what we push is a lot of negativity, then we know that we're lacking positivity and we need to make those efforts. Like I always say, a pitcher can only pour out what's put into it. A pitcher can't pour out something else.
So how do I know? Because if I'm not, if I'm not in tune with myself, and if I don't have strong self-awareness, or if I don't know what exists, in other people, then how do I know that I am lacking? Because sometimes we don't know that we are lacking. So how do we know that we're lacking?
So once again, we're going to bring the two topics together about shifting perspective and lacking.
Oh.
What you just said, I'm going to shift your perspective. What you just said is, Jeffrey, I'm lacking understanding of self.
That's important. So now, I need to have that recognition that I don't understand myself.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are plenty of programs out there. Shameless plug of my book, Self-Discussions, which is all about that. Self-Discussions is literally 52 messages of introspection and self-questioning. Yes. So if you're really not sure, I tell everybody, this is, if you don't have a good COVID read, Self-Discussions is an excellent COVID read.
Yes.
There are plenty of books like it.
Yes.
They cause you to ultimately stop.
Yeah.
Look at scenarios, look at yourself, and look at life, and really take hard stock of where do I fall. When I got into the business of speaking and personal development, I knew I had a passion for speaking. I had a passion for developing people, but I did not know the science of speaking. So I was easily able to recognize I lacked understanding of speaking. Okay. And so I joined Toastmasters International, which then that helped to fill the gap of the science of speaking.
Okay, all right.
You just keep piling.
Okay, I like where you went with understanding self. It is actually a module in a in-person online version of my workshops that I do, because in the sales world, if you do not understand yourself very well, then you executing in a role where you have to visualize your customer's future. You have to have this kind of growth mindset where you see how they can move from one step to the other and how you can find a solution for them. If you set limits on yourself in terms of where you want to go, then that affects your performance in sales.
Absolutely.
Right. So I can understand what you're saying. Understanding yourself is so important so that you can move forward. So
Sure.
we're now going to talk about leading your life. How do you do that, Jeffrey? It's a big topic. How do we do this? Leading our lives, especially for sales professionals and entrepreneurs.
Well, one thing every sales professional already knows is that sales is probably one of the loneliest jobs in the world. And it's also one of the ones that require the most internal motivation. But one of the things that tends to happen to us, whether in sales or in a regular 9 to 5 office job, is we fall into routine. And routine feels comfortable, routine feels good. But the thing about leadership is leadership first and foremost makes decisions based on the desired outcome and the current situation. There are a lot of us now who we were used to making 10 prospect calls a day. We were used to setting 2 client meetings a day. We were used to making 50 phone calls a day because that was our routine.
Yes.
Now that our routine has been thrown off, we feel that everything has fallen apart. When the reality is that what you're called to do now is make a decision and take action based on where you want to go and what is the reality of the current situation. And if you do that, what you'll actually do is take the reins of your life in a day-to-day scenario. We want to plan. We want to go forward. We want to know that in 6 months, things are going to be in X position. But the reality is you only have this moment.
Right.
God forbid I told you that this was your last Friday. You would live the next week very differently.
Yes, you're sure. You're right about that. So what you're saying is that leading your life in the context of salespeople is that what we were doing a couple of months ago in terms of a routine, that very well would have changed. And instead of thinking about what we used to do and how it used to work, is to pivot our brains and take action to lead us out of that situation, to think differently and think about how do we execute maybe the same things but execute them in a different way, and we take leadership so that we can move forward and not stay and get very frustrated and in the doldrums.
Exactly. And the other thing about leadership that is particularly key to your audience of your salespeople, your entrepreneur, your business owners, is leadership means the buck stops with me.
Yes.
It's not COVID's fault. It's not Corona fault. It's not the client's fault. It's my shortcoming in one area or another. So the question is, if I can identify the shortcoming, then I can correct it, then I can move forward. But at the end of the day, it's nobody's fault but mine. And that's a key element of leadership.
Even in COVID, Jeffrey, even in COVID, I mean, I couldn't stop the customers from not talking to me. I couldn't stop the situation where they are not available when I reach out to them, or my customers, they're thinking the same way I am thinking. I couldn't stop that. So what do you mean by it's my fault? What do you mean by that?
Well, the reality is it's in those particular situations, it's especially your fault. And I'm talking about this from a personal point of view. When COVID happened, I make most of my income through events, through human interaction, face-to-face interaction. When COVID was announced and lockdown and curfew was announced, I lost all income, all potential income to November. That's like February to November.
Yes.
But then it becomes a question of ownership and responsibility. Do I sit down and cry and complain that, oh, COVID isn't this and COVID isn't that, and if it wasn't for COVID, I would have, no. Okay, reset, take charge. People are not meeting face to face. How else do they meet? Oh, they're meeting digitally. Oh, they're reading at home. Oh, they're doing online programs. Oh, they're doing webinars. Okay, how do I get into these spaces? What projects have I had on the back burner that I haven't addressed because I never have enough time to address them? That is taking responsibility and ownership of the situation.
Yes.
If you sit down and say, I would have been fine had COVID not happened, then
Yeah.
you're really not leading your life.
Right. Well, I can identify with all that you just said because there are major things that I've been able to accomplish in the last 2 months that I didn't do before. So I understand what that looks like. Okay, so we're going to talk now about changing your approach. And I think it's one of the biggest things that not just salespeople and entrepreneurs, but anybody at all, any professional, even our personal lives. How do we change our approach and to remain focused and to focus on our goals and still be successful?
Well, in order to change and change that approach, it's really about adaptation to the situation. That's what it really is at the end of the day. We can look at a number of businesses and case studies from a comparison of Blockbuster to Netflix, Amazon to Toys R Us, and all of the other so-called innovative ideas of the 21st century.
Yes.
But really what it is, it's about facing what is really here right now. There's so many of us who are complaining about the past, what we should have done, where we should have been, what was in the pipeline. There are many of us that are complaining about the future. I don't know what tomorrow has for me. I don't know where I'm going. I'm not sure about my plan. But the reality is we only have the present. And in any business, in any family, in any sales, there's one thing we all do on a day-to-day basis, and that is face challenges.
Yes. And changes.
And changes. And so the thing about it is that the only constant in life is change, and the only species that survive are those that adapt.
Yes.
And so if you are going to survive as a salesperson, and not only survive but conquer, then the strongest skill that you're going to need is going to be adaptation.
Yes.
Okay, the system was this, it's now this. How quickly can I adapt to what's happening? If, for example, you sell insurance, you know, the way I sold insurance was lunch meetings. When I got lunch meetings, I locked in a client. Well, guess what? People not having lunch anymore.
Yes.
But that doesn't change the fact.
Yes.
What if you did takeout for your clients? It's the same lunch investment, but you're dropping it off for your clients or making it available for them. Do you think that that would open up a conversation? Especially if you timed it. I have a lunch for you, I will drop it off or I'll have it delivered for you, and then we'll talk after. So the lunch will be at 1 o'clock, let's meet at 1:30.
Yes.
So I'm not able to meet with you face to face, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm still able to use what was my strength in now a different way. Adaptation to the situation.
Yes, absolutely. Because as I was speaking to a group yesterday, an organization, just about how we change and adapt, that people's goals don't change. And the planning for the future, it doesn't change either. More so, I think people are doing more introspection. So the opportunities are still there. And some salespeople may say that people don't have money. That's just some people. People have money and people are reprioritizing how they spend their money, and how they spend their money could be the product that you have to offer that gives them a solution. So
the reality is as well.
Right.
I just want to add that as well, is that the money didn't disappear.
Not necessarily.
It didn't disappear. It changed hands.
Yes, change hands, right?
Changed hands.
Or where we intended it to go as individuals having our own money, we've changed where it should go. All right, well, Jeffrey, this has been an inspiring conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be sharing with our audience, and we wish you all the best in your international motivational speaking, your next book that is coming up, your martial arts. And so we're very, very happy that you could have joined us today. Have a good day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, great.
Thank you very much, Bev. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Good.